Two Sides of a Coin, Dharma Talks by Sayadaw Ukkaṭṭha. Thae Ingu Sayadaw Ukkaṭṭha, 1913–1973. Translation based on the recorded tapes, Burmese, by Bhikkhu Uttamo. Burmese monks are often known by the name of the place where the Buddhist temple they preside over is located. It seems to me Thae Ingu Monastery is a cave monastery surrounded by 4 lakes. This also mentioned by Sayadaw in one of his talks. Sayadaw gave a 3-hour talk, referring to his life and practice. This was requested by a lay supporter for the future generation to come. Sayadaw's talk was as follows. He was born in 1913 at Norgon village in Morbi town area. At his time, it did not have modern school system in most villages. So, most village children of boys and girls attended the monastery school, where the monks taught them reading and writing. In the beginning he said that when he was going very lazy to attend the village monastery school and not interested in learning. And very often he ran away from school. Even he could not recite the Mangala Sutta, which most village children would do. He was also afraid of speaking to the monk because monks had influence and respect by villagers. At the age of 14, he told his father not wanting to study, and after 6 months he took a wife. Later in this talk, Sayadaw mentioned that he had 2 wives. This was a Karen wife from the village. The Karen is the second larger ethnic group in Burma. In the past, I only relied on karma, i.e., the law of action, and especially on the wholesome merit of dana, giving. I had done a lot of them before. It's not the real refuge. After one has done his karmas, he will experience suffering, dukkha. The concepts of Buddha, Dharma and Sangha can't do anything for us. Now, for the present, I only rely on the real Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. The term, real, here refers to the Paramatta, exact Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. Even conventional Dharma can't send one to heavenly realm. Dying with a concept, i.e., a wrong view, is more likely to become a hell being, an animal, and a ghost. With the wholesome results arise, we receive the happiness of human and deity. With the unwholesome results, we fall into the plane of misery, apaya. The Buddha taught us not to think about the past, the present and the future. For 46 years I had relied on the stone images of the Buddha, the Shui Ta Gon Pagoda, the Dharma in the Pitaka, Buddhist textbooks, and the ordinary Sangha of the conventional world. When I understand the truth and only rely on the real Buddha, Dharma and Sangha of the supramundane reality, Lokuttara province. But before you reach to the other shore, i.e., Nibbana element, from Sotapanna to Arahant, don't reject on karma, actions, and the conventional truth. There are 2 provinces of truth, convention and reality, Samadhi Sakha and Paramatta Sakha. In the past, before not knowing these things, I only relied on karma. If I had died at that time, I would have definitely met dukkha. At the time of death, the Buddha can't send us to heavenly and Brahma God realm, and to Nibbana. When the 5 khandhas, i.e., mind and body, perish, the stone Buddha, Shui Ta Gon and Shui Mo Da pagodas can't send us to good destinations, Sugati. The Shui Mo Da pagoda is located in Pegu, or Pago, and is one of the famous pagodas in Burma. Why is that? Because all these are concepts. Therefore, you all should do a lot of wholesome karmas before arriving to the other shore. Even the saints, from Sotapanna to Anagami, who still have ignorance, avijja. They are doing merit all the same. I don't have any book knowledge on study about the practice and its result. But I have completed in regard to practice and its result. When I was contemplating the khandha, i.e., mind and body, the samadhi light was shining on it and wisdom analyzing it as this is mind, body, wholesome and unwholesome dharmas, etc. And then the path knowledge, i.e., the Noble Eightfold Path, made the decision on it. On practice I know all the mind states, i.e., mind with mental states. Before I believed in the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha and building monastery making merits. It is dependent on karma, and if its results are not arisen at the time of death, then it will still sink in misery. In his youth, he was a rough and tough guy, but had good nature. He had sympathy and concern for others. If someone came and asked for help, he would help people as much as he could. If he lent money to people and never asked the money back, easily let go of things. He never observed the precepts, sila, but never took people's lives. These are related to his life as a robber. He had done a lot of dana and built a monastery in his village. After finishing the monastery, the monks invited him for the merit ceremony, but he rejected it and said as it was enough. So, he had a sharp mind and determined nature. It makes me remember Mogik Sayadaw's talks on the character of someone who has the view of annihilation. He had committed some crimes, maybe robbing, but Sayadaw not mentioned it, and was put into jail for 7 years. This happened around 1934 or 1935 when he was 21. It was close to the Second World War in 1941. The Japanese army entered Burma from the south via Kanchanaburi west of Bangkok, Thailand. In 1942 Rangoon had fallen into the Japanese army. Sayadaw told about his life during the prison years as followed. First, he was sent to Ukkaṭṭha prison, which may be not far from his birthplace. And then moved to Hanzada prison and Bassein prison, which were in the Delta area. Bassein prison was a labor prison, and he had to weave 16 mattresses per day. From there he was moved to Mauk Palan prison, which also a labor camp. There he had to break rocks into the sizes of pebble 8 dins per day. This is a Burmese measurement for rice and beans. 1 din equals 6 cans of condensed milk, 8 dins equals 48 tin cans of condensed milk. That is a big number. It was quite a rough and tiresome task, and he had to break the dynamited rock fragments into pebble size. Sometimes it hit the bodily parts, especially legs, and became injuries and wounds. If someone could give the money, he can stop to do it, or reduce the numbers. This was a prison in Lower Burma. When the Japanese army arriving in Burma, he was in hope for freedom. Instead he and the other prisoners were moved to Mandalay prison in central Burma. Their ankles were shackled with iron chains and sent by train to Mandalay. After 3 months in the prison, all the prisoners were free because of the war and Japanese Air Force bombing Mandalay city. He and other 6 companions walked to the east of Yan Kin Taung, i.e., a well-known hill range at near Mandalay city. It is also a spiritual place for practitioners. There they met some Buddhist yogis who had taken refuge there to escape the bombing. They were fed and spent the night at the place. In the morning, a Chinese Buddhist gave them each 7 kyats, the currency of Burma. They resumed their journey towards Sel Tav Gyi area, means Big Canal, which was in the west of Yan Kin Taung. They arrived at Big Canal in the afternoon and took a rest near a village called 40 Miles Village, which had a settee named Shui Ta Liong, reclining Buddha. Furthermore, they took a nap under a mango tree and woke up in the evening. A rich man from Mithila city met them. He had a house in the village and came here for temporary to escape the war from Mithila. Mithila is in the south of Mandalay and a big city and has a big lake which also has the same name. He was looking for someone who could help him to go and get the money and some gemstones which were left behind at his big house in Mithila. Likewise, he was observing 7 of them and preferred Yuong Tun, Sayadaw's lay name, among them. According to Sayadaw, the Mithila boss chose him because he said very little and kept quiet. He invited all of them to his house for the night. At night, the boss came to see Yuong Tun and spoke to him. He told him that the time was not very safety, and he could encounter dukkha. So, he told him to stay here for a while, and when the Japanese army arrived in Mandalay, he would send him back to Rangoon by Japanese train. Yuong Tun thought that if he met dukkha, he would never see his parents again. Therefore, he agreed to leave behind. In the morning, the other 6 continued their journey, and the boss gave them some money. According to Sayadaw, these men's mind was also unwholesome. They had a plan of robbing and killing people on the way. In the end, they met with death themselves. In the evening, the boss came and gave the news to him. He said that these 6 men encountered some villagers at a place called Small River, Mayat Nge. The villagers were waiting for released prisoners who would come to their place. Because some time before, some released prisoners attacking and robbing them when they arrived here. They arrested these 6 men and bound their hands behind their backs and threw them all into the river. He confirmed to say that if Yuong Tun went with them would meet the same fate. Mayat Nge River is passing through Amarapura area and Mogik Sayadaw's birthplace is on the bank of this river. Yuong Tun stayed with the boss for 3 months, and when Mandalay became calmed down again, the boss took him to Mithila. The British Army and government staffs retreated to Upper Burma when the Japanese army advancing. The boss had 2 houses there. One of the houses was destroyed by bomb and only with the walls were intact. The other house had 2 safes, and the one in the kitchen was opened and empty. Yuong Tun was using an axe, demolished the wall behind the safe which was in the guest room and took out some money and gemstones. It could be filled a tin can. The boss gave him $700, kyats, with some clothes and put him on a train to Rangoon. From there he arrived back to his home in Morbi. Sayadaw said that he had 2 wives, as Yuong Tun, one in the village and the other in Rangoon. This one was a Burmese woman. At village, he did farming and in Rangoon doing nothing. Maybe sometime he did the robbing if the chances arose to help his companions. We will see one of these incidents later. He stayed at each place for a month. When he was in Yangon, he was always with some of his friends, and it was difficult for him to be without them. He was used to it. Sayadaw did not say what he was doing with them. It could be that he was drinking intoxicants and gambling with these people. His wife disappointed with these situations. One day, his wife got angry with him, probably because of an argument, and went to a meditation retreat for 7 days. This was Min Gun Meditation Center, which taught the Mahasi system of dry insight. The meditation teacher was a layman named Sayagyi U Mayat Thae Tun. He was a disciple of Min Gun Thon Jetavana Sayadaw, who was also the teacher of Mahasi Sayadaw. Yu Ong Tun also heard about that he was teaching the system of touching, hearing, etc. When the body touching another part of body and knowing as knowing. Maybe he got this misinformation from his friends. After his wife had come back from retreat, he asked her about these things. His wife's response was it was the teaching by a Buddhist monk. Yu Ong Tun knew that he was insulting his wife and the monk and asking forgiveness from her. Here we know Yu Ong Tun's strong saddha and respect on the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. The second time when she came back from retreat and brought a book with her. This was a Dharma book on Sun Lun Sayadaw's biography and his teachings. She asked him to read this book and told him that Sayadaw was a farmer before, and with the practice, he became an arahant. When he read a few pages of the book on Anapana practice, a strong piti, rapture, arose in his body and mind. With this strange experience, he decided that he must realize Dharma if he practiced. So, he wrapped the book with a new paper and kept it in a drawer. It's been in the drawer for 2 years. Another strange thing that happened to him was the 2 observant days, Ukkaṭṭha, the full moon and the new moon. On these occasions, every early morning, mostly before the sun arises or the dawn periods, a Nibbon saw was going every street reminding and urging Buddhists to get up early doing the Dharma duties of the day to come. Nibbon saw can be 1 person or 2 people. If there is only 1 person, he will carry a small Burmese Dharma bell which has flat shape and made of brass iron hanging with string on the top of the bell. The other hand carries a wooden hammer. He will chant some Dharma verses in Pali or in Burmese with a louder voice to remind and urge people to get up early doing pujas, bhavana, preparing foods for the Sangha, etc., and then he will strike the bell. If there are 2 persons, on their shoulders, they carry a pole with a bigger bell hanging in the middle of it. The one in the back has to strike the bell. When Yu Ong Tun heard the sound of the Dharma bell and the Dharma chanting, it made him strong rapture arising. Note on Nibbon saw. This is a very old Buddhist tradition, and even we can trace its source as far as to the Buddha Kassapa's time. Most Burmese Buddhists heard about Mahajig, the short form of Mahadagata, a very poor man. One day there was an offering to the Buddha and his Sangha, and a Nibbon saw went to every part of the city to inform the people. He met Mahadagata on the street, and he urged Mahadagata to make an offering. Even though he had no money, and gave the promise to offer dana for 1 bhikkhu. So, he worked harder on that day. But Nibbon saw thought that Mahadagata could not offer for a Sangha, therefore he did not put him on the list. When the time came, Mahadagata went to the monastery for a Sangha. Only the Buddha was without a donor. Everyone there was expecting for the enlightened one. On that day, the Buddha entered the state of Nirodha Samapatti. When he came out with the bowl, he handed it to Mahadagata. The day onwards he became a rich man. This was the past life story of novice Pandita, who was 7 years old Arahant. This practice may now be extinct in Burma. This practice is connecting with appamada, heedfulness. It should be maintained in the Buddhist communities as a Dharma practice and duty. I have seen a lot of benefits from it. Closing square bracket. One day an incident changed Yu Ong Tun's life totally. That day, one of his friends came to him for help, because he needed some money. So, he and 2 men went to rob a house that night. Usually, he never wore a hat, but luckily on that day wore a thick hat. At that time, he had no desire for the task, but anyhow he wanted to help his friend. In an area, they saw a house in a compound with the front door was opened. They went in, and suddenly it was raining and came out again. They walked a distance for some time and returned to the same place. Likewise, they entered the same house again. Usually, Yuong Tun held a gun and entered a house, but this time he did it blindly. When arriving inside, a man holding a long knife struck him on the head and suddenly, he fell down with his buttocks hitting the floor. But the man was holding the knife and looking at him instead of another strike. The other two pulled him up and ran out for their lives. It seems to me the man in the house saw their suspicious behaviors in the house and waiting for them with his knife. According to Sayadaw, the knife cut through 2 or 3 finger lengths. It could include with the thickness of the hat. One of the 2 friends took him to his house to spend the night and treated his injury. 6 days later, even before he had fully recovered from the knife wound to his head, he told his wife that he would return to the village and does the practice. His wife was very glad about it and gave him a lot of encouragement. Sayadaw said that his wife at Kamayu, i.e., in Rangoon, was the main person who guided him to the practice. Yuong Tun returned to his home village with the book he kept in a drawer 2 years ago. He observed the 9 precepts from the village monk and shut himself up in a small room of the monastery Sima. On day 5, he frequently fell to the ground from a sitting position due to changes in the 4 elements of his body and severe pain. He had to repay his negative kamaj debts. Only the practicing yogis know about these things. Some people suffer a great deal from the element of heat element, when they are on the verge of death, and this kind of element is what will kill him. Yuong Tun was very tough and determined person. He would not change his body and posture. He would follow the dukkha vedana, the feeling of pain, until finally even he fell down. After that, he would resume his sitting posture again. On the 9th day, he returned to his home and observed the 8 precepts. In this talk, Sayadaw did not mention his first realization, i.e., Sotapanna. In a biography after his death, however, it is mentioned that the first realization was on the 6th day of his practice, the 12th of September 1959. Sayadaw continued his practice at home, where he often sat under the Sai-yo tree, the name of a tree in Burma, in the garden of his eldest sister, Dorbi Bwa Sain. In the afternoon he went to the cemetery of Norgon village where no one could disturb him. After he had overcome the painful feeling, dukkha vedana, he increased his effort for 7 days in day and night without taking food. During sittings, many mosquitoes and gnats bit his whole body, and his white clothes were stained with blood. Morbi area was very well known for its mosquito bite. After a month and 3 days, i.e., start from the beginning of the practice, by transcending the samadhi state, he arrived at vipassana. Sayadaw mentioned his direct experience by reciting the Pali words from the first discourse, i.e., Kakamuddapadi, Nanamuddapadi, vision arise, and knowledge arise. Then he talked about discerning of impermanence. Mind and body are perishing as the boiling water, or broken apart like a big foam of water. Therefore, the body shape and concept disappear. And then the khandha element, i.e., body, reappear again as a serious wound. It is filled with white worms and is eaten by many worms, as I am seeing its arising and passing away by their eating. Later the body becomes bloated and rotten like a 10 or 15-day-old corpse. Even I can hear its sounds with the ear. The putrid body liquid is flowing out from it, and also seeing the intestines and lung inside. After that, it is burnt by fire and all falling apart. By seeing all these events arising and passing away one by one, it reduces my sensual desire and lust, kamaraga. It happens at day and night. If I look at someone, be it a man or a woman, all I see is its ugliness, and there is no beauty to be found. Whatever I am looking only seeing in these ways. At that time, I was in the stage of once returner, Sakadagami. I didn't know about it at the time. Only later by reflection I knew it. His second realization was on the 10th of October 1959. At this stage he could see and know other things with the samadhi power. This was recorded in his biography. After over a month, I returned to Kamayu, i.e., in Rangoon. After 3 days had passed and a misfortune was fallen on him. 2 crime inspectors came to his place and arrested him. It was the year of 1960, and it could be the period the military took control of the country for temporarily as a government because of instability around the country. Sayadaw mentioned this incident as followed. From Ukkaṭṭha, that referred to the capital city, crime inspectors Ukkaṭṭha Lay and Umongko came to arrest me. My kamage debt, i.e., misfortune, is not finished yet. They searched my home and did not find anything which they were looking. So, they took me to follow them. And on the way, Ukkaṭṭha Lay asked me, "Do you practice meditation?" I answered him, "Yes." He asked me again, "Do you know Yu Ba Yin?" At that time, I was only concerned with discerning the impermanence and answered him, "I don't know this person." His response was, "You was practicing Dharma and telling lie." We arrived at the crime inspection center, and Colonel Ki Win was questioning me. After that, he told the officers to question me. That was asking them to beat me. They sent me to insane prison. This is a well-known prison in Rangoon to question and torture criminals. There, Inspector Hla Myint was interrogating me. At the time my samadhi was good, discerning impermanence. His practice was on the way to anagami, and I knew it. I have the kamage debt to pay. He asked me where the gun and the looted property were. I answered him as, "I don't know anything." He said to me, "If you don't tell the truth you must die." My response was, "This is up to you." Yu Ong Tun was handcuffed from behind and bound with rope around the arms. They put him down with his back on a wooden platform which was 6 inches thick. His 2 legs were also bound with rope. 2 men controlled him at the head and the other 2 at the legs. Inspector Hla Myint sat on Yu Ong Tun's stomach. They covered his face with a wet cloth and pouring water on it. Water went into his mouth, and it was quite unbearable. It was also difficult to breathe under the water, making a wah-wah-wah sound. Because of his samadhi power, Yu Ong Tun could bear it. With the practice of insight by seeing anicca after the ending of it and became quiet, it could be in the fruition state, phala. Hla Myint thought that I was in coma. I was not in coma, the water went in and the stomach rising up. When my stomach was full of water, Hla Myint with his buttocks pounded on my stomach 4 or 5 times and all the water came out from the mouth. If I was like I used to be, I went into a rage. This time I didn't get angry. I suffered because of my karmic debt, only this mental state. For a month they could not get any confession from him and sent him back to Ukkaṭṭha. Hla Myint told Colonel Ki Win, "I think it was a mistake. We can't get any information from him. Inspector Ukkaṭṭha was dissatisfied with it and wanting to do the questioning again. Ki Win asked me, "I heard that you were bad before." I answered him that I was bad before and not now and practicing Dharma. Colonel Ki Win asked him to free me, but Ukkaṭṭha did not want to free me. So, he sent Yuong Tun to Kamayu police station and put him in a cell. He is being arranged to have him sent to a distant prison. The police officer of the Kamayu police station knew Yuong Tun and sent him to Rangoon prison. After 7 days passed, Colonel Ki Win freed him from the prison. As soon as Yuong Tun was free and going back to his village, he asked his family members, brothers and sisters, to build a kuti for him, and he would do the practice. They build the kuti in the Hte woods. The base has 8 pillars and the floor has 6 planks, forming a square. Yuong Tun interpreted it as 8-fold paths, 6 elements and 4 noble truths. He made a determination. I must realize Dharma. So he was practicing hard without rising from his seat. I am seeing the dissolution of the phenomena. However, I still cannot distinguish between panati, concept, and paramatta, ultimate reality. The body becomes putrid and bloated, burn with fire. These are concepts appearing in the mind. So, it's not free from the concept yet. After some time, free from the mental factor of the concept and the concept of solidity and shape disappear, and it becomes fine particles. And then I'll only see the dissolution of the atomic paramatta matter. Within the desire of seeing, hearing, smell, knowing mind not arise. It's still not crossing into the path knowledge of a non-returner, anagami, yet. I sat a lot. It is not very good on the release of my stomach. I go to the toilet only once every 7 or 10 days, and it makes me painful. One day I went inside the bamboo forest to release my stomach. With the contemplation of strong feeling arising in the body, and it came to the ending of it. It was on the 15th of March 1960, and with the realization came the knowledge of seeing the 6 heavenly realms, the 20 Brahma God realms and many hell existences up to the great hell, Maharavichi. This was in his biography. Closing square bracket. After the ending of Sankhara, conditioned phenomena. The mind went up to the sky and 3 to 5 minutes later it fell down again with the whole body became tense and stiff. We cannot interpret it literally. The mind can't go here and there. This is a wrong view of a soul. The mind inclining towards somewhere. Later we can see this kind of expression with Sayadaw U. Candima's experience of jhana. With the reviewing knowledge that I know the realization of Nibbana. With this knowledge I'll become a Brahma God if I die. With continuous reviewing I know that I will take rebirth in the highest pure abode, a Kanata Brahma. Before death, the noble path knowledge inclined towards Brahma God realm. These words relate to the second sentence above. The unwholesome mental state or unwholesome mind, akusala citta, will incline towards painful realms, apayabhum, such as hells, animals and hungry shades. I review my future birth with the knowledge and seeing the sandy area of Thae in Gu, which is surrounding by 4 lakes at my village. There are other visions, a stupa, a vihara, and my body in a glass coffin. I tell my family members, mother and brother, sister, about a golden stupa, the vihara, and this place becomes a town with high road. I continued my practice and one night a Brahma god came and asked me to take the monastic robes, i.e., become a monk. I told him as I wouldn't and asked him to leave. Sakka, the king of 33 gods and other Brahma gods, also came and requested me. I don't want to be in robes. This is up to me. So, I asked him to leave. Next time, when they came and made a request, I told my mother and brother that this was the time for me to ordain as a monk. Yogi U Suya in Morbi town sponsored my ordination. Many people know my struggle in the practice, but some don't believe it, because he was quite bad in the past, had bad reputation in Morbi area and was feared by rich men. He practiced quite hard and becoming thin and bony. I was bitten by mosquito and gnats, and my white clothes were stained with red blood. Because of Dharma rapture and happiness, piti and sukha, I could bear it. With patience, khanti, I can practice not missing anything. If people practice in this way, they will also be able to achieve it. Some friends were telling me that I would die in this way. Even my yogis in his meditation center, can't bear the mosquitoes' bite and changing their bodies. They are obstructed by ditthi, i.e., self-view. How can they attain the Dharma? If the ants are moving on their bodies and in closed eyes, they sweep it away with the hands. After ordaining, i.e., the 12th of March 1961, I went arms round and offered them to the monks. According to the monastic rules, there are duties of a monk. For example, cleaning the temple compound and burning leaves or garbage, but there are ants and other insects in there. If we ask laypeople to do it, it will be like killing him too. In this case, it is best to do it by yourself. I have abandoned the defilement of sensual desire, kilesa karma, of the 6 senses of doors, as a non-returner. Defilements are arising from these senses of doors. Therefore, I want to keep the mind on its original state, if not it affects the mind. If seeing something, and it becomes the 5 aggregates, khandha. I am afraid of it by knowing these things. Can a secular person know these things? The minds arising from the 6 senses of doors are led to suffering, and could a worldling knows it? Here we can know the mind states of an anagami and layman. Visakha is a very good example. U Kyor Din, i.e., Soon Lun Sayadaw lay name, after becoming anagami, he had a lot of difficulties and suffering to live with his wife. She also did not let him ordain as a novice. If we study the teachings of Mogik Sayadawgi on Paticcasamuppada, we will know or understand these things very clear and profoundly. If you don't know about the mind, don't check it. If you want to do it, then simply check your own mind, otherwise it will harm oneself. After ordaining, and it's not good for my mind to stay here. One day when he saw the assistant abbot was painting the monastery and advised him to ask a layman for the job. His response was, I was doing for the wholesome merit, Sankara Kasala Dharma. It's all right, he wants merit. But I don't want it. It doesn't mean Aryans would not do things to benefit to others. When my teacher came back, the abbot, I asked him permission for going somewhere to practice. I also talked to him my situation here. Now I have attained 3 path knowledges that my seeing and knowing consciousness are changed. From stream enterer to non-returner are speaking in concepts. These referred to the changing levels of seeing and knowing. He got permission from his teacher. He wanted to go to Thae forest, which is near a small town of the same name, not very far from Rangon. Then, he went to Morbi town with only 3 robes and a bowl. He went to Dayaka Usuya for a train ticket, not handling money. The Dayaka requested him to leave next day. because he wanted to offer him dana, rice and foods. I have to go there by train because I don't possess the supernormal power, avana. At the time of the Buddha, they ate vegetarian foods that people could get it. Nowadays, people eat meat and the body becomes heavy. In practice there is strong pain arising, and the body can't bear it, and at near avana it falls back. The last period of the Buddha Sasana people can't get avana. It is interesting how Sayadaw or where he got this information. Even the commentary mentioned that there could be no tevaja, i.e., triple knowledge, arahants this time. It's not true, and we can't take it at face value. We have some records of the psychic abilities of Bhikkhu Sayadaw. Closing square bracket. Between 8 and 9 p.m., my spiritual faculties became balanced, and the final knowledge of the path arose, i.e., the 20th of May 1961. I had previously promised Danaka Yu Su Ya that I would inform him if I had completed my practice, as he had asked me to do before. Therefore, I told him what happened to my practice. I also informed my family about it, and asking them to find a place for me, so that I can spend my whole rain retreat there, Vasa. Furthermore, I tell them as I'll not accept any invitation, making merit for the dead and offerings. Likewise, I'll keep with my practice. I have spent my whole Vasa with peace and happiness. At the place of Thae in Gu, they built a small kuti for me. I go for alms round, but if raining I don't go, then shut the inside door. There is another larger kuti near my place and my mother stays there. So, if mother comes and asking me, I don't even open it for her. I don't practice Dharma for others. I just practice for myself because a strong sense of urgency, samvega, arises. I don't practice it out of greed for money. If I want money, I will do the robbing. After the Vasa in November between 1 and 2 a.m., in the early morning 3 men came toward my kuti. They were wearing white clothes and bowing in front of me. Reviewing with my knowledge, I found out that they were Brahma gods. I asked the reason for their coming here. They requested me for teaching Dharma. I told them that I was illiterate and couldn't give talks. But they were pressing me to do it. After that, they asked consent and left the place. After they had left, Sayadaw went down to Thae in Gu area, and when he stood there the earth trembled on the spot. He knows that it was the place for spreading the Dharma. After some time, Sayadaw's mother and brother went to Mahasi Center, Sun Lun Center and Min Gun Center, and they told him about him. They told him of a village monk whose practice was quite noteworthy. So, they requested him to check his knowledge by using the Pitaka textbooks. But no center responded to their request. At last, they and Sayadaw went to see Thamlin Sayadaw, who was a well-known scholar and meditation teacher of that time. He could speak 6 languages and wrote a book named Ladder of Vipassana Knowledge. This is a book criticizing on some systems of that time. We went to see him because he was also a meditator. I have not any knowledge on textbooks, so he pats an object with his hand near him. And then, he asks me, "What is this?" I answer him as, "It stays as it is." He is dissatisfied with my answer. I explain to him, in a blink of an eye, I saw the mind vanished 100,000 billion times and matter disappeared at the rate of 5,000 billion times. If you take them as seeing it and it becomes a concept, also as vanishing is a concept. My mind just stops at seeing only, not more. There is no vanishing and knowing it. I am just stopping at it. It stays as it is. Do I hear the sound? The patting sound. Yes, I hear. I don't know, the sound vanishes. I am staying at just hearing, but not more. When the smell contact with the nose and take it as smell is a concept, as vanishing is a concept. There is no smelly vanishing. It's just smelling. At eating, the taste is concept, sweet is concept. It stays at just tasting. Therefore, my answer means, it stays as it's, if still knowing it as vanishing will get birth, jati. The vanishing phenomena in me are in the state of cessation. This statement is profound. Tham Lin Sayadaw exclaimed, I understand it now. And then, the problem was solved. I am talking the Dharma which I have attained and not from the books. Can't you learn it from books? The child can learn it also. To understand about the khandhas you have to practice forgetting it. The Dharma for attainment is only get by practice. Sayadaw's talk on his life and practice end here. His answer to Tham Lin Sayadaw's test is interesting. It is simple, direct and profound. Furthermore, it represents what an arahant mind is. This is a mind without any attachment. Without any attachment, and there is no birth. This is a pure mind. Some traditions interpret as the arahant still had defilement and selfish. It is nonsense at all. In the talks of Mogik Sayadaw, he taught the meditation which the Buddha gave to Bahya Darusariya and Malankaputta. His interpretation on this meditation was quite different from others. He said that in the whole Nikayas only Bahya and Malankaputta had this instruction, i.e., just stop at seeing, hearing, etc. Therefore, it was difficult for everyone practiced in this way. This is similar to the arahant mind. Closing square bracket. Note: in the following, 3 talks by Thae Ingu Sayadaw are included. The first one was delivered in 1964 at University Dharma Sala. The others were at Mai Gon Dharma Sala in 1968. All these talks are without titles and all relate to his experiences in practice. The first talk on the practice of stream entera to arahant, the second on stream entera, and the third to arahant. Usually, monks never talk about their practices. Even if they talk, these are only in general. Here Sayadaw himself and Sayadaw U Candima are the exception.